Grab your dancing shoes, your best gal or guy, and your toga, because we're taking you back 3,000 years to a time of lyres, pipes, and kangaroos as we rock back around the clock on Across the Fence. Good afternoon, and thanks for stopping by Across the Fence. I'm Keith Silva. If you struggle listening to the music of your children or grandchildren, or can't tell the difference between trip, trap, or hip-hop, well, have we got a show for you. We're going old school today, really old school. Ancient music dates back to prehistoric times when musical notation was revolutionary and oral traditions topped the charts. Our guest today is the program director and professor of classics at UVM, John Franklin. John is a playwright, a musician, a keyboard man in our yacht rock band. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Keith. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. We're going to start off with some show and tell. You've brought in a lyre, correct?
That's correct.
I got that right? All right, so
Yep.
You've got your lyre here.
Yep.
What are we looking at?
Well, this is one of the most common kinds of instruments in the ancient Mediterranean world and the ancient Middle East. Lyres are defined by having two arms and then a crossbar and a number of strings, typically 7 in the early years of Greece, such as this has. And you can tune them in a variety of ways, so it's not a plug-and-play instrument like a piano or a clarinet where you hit a note and you get the note. You set this up for each song the way you want it to be. So in some ways it's very limited with only 7 strings, but in other ways it's very flexible.
So those pegs at the top, those are like tuning pegs for a guitar.
That's right.
So you can adjust those as.
That's right.
Okay. Great.
Yep, you have to do a lot of tuning.
Yeah, do a lot of tuning. Their lyre dealers are in short supply nowadays, so
That's
how
right.
did you get this instrument?
Well, the supply is short, but the demand is also quite short. So, there's a pretty good fit in the market. This is made by a friend of mine in Italy, Marco Sciascia, who does take orders. And he's made this from not a real tortoise shell; those are illegal to export, but from fiberglass. And so he just builds these one at a time. This one has a slot for a piezo pickup, so I can amplify it.
Oh, okay.
And you just send him an email and say, Marco, I'd like another lyre, and 3 to 4 months later it shows up.
And is that a skin on the top there?
Yes, that's goat skin.
Goat skin, okay.
Yep.
And this is what people would have been walking with around in ancient Greece?
That's right. So this was the early form of the instrument, and even after professional instruments that were much more elaborate came about, ordinary people and kids in music school would play an instrument of this sort. Because in Greece there's lots of turtle shells sitting around, right? So they're cheap to make. Yeah.
And this isn't a museum piece. It's not meant to be on a shelf. You perform what you call new ancient music.
That's
with
right.
your band, Call of Kanaru. How did the ancient music thing come about for you?
Well, so in college I studied music composition, and then of course, as anybody could tell you now, that's a dead-end career path. So I went into Greek and Latin classics as a way to have a quote-unquote lucrative day job.
Right.
And when it came time to conduct research, I combined those two fields. And so for 30 years now, I've been studying the music of the ancient world. We have a number of surviving pieces from ancient Greece using notation, as you mentioned in your intro, and we do play some of those. But I also spend more time on what I call new ancient music, which is composing new music following the principles of the surviving pieces. And that's a way that you can set music to a play by Euripides or Aristophanes for which the original music is lost, but you can recreate something plausible for it.
And the music is much different than modern Western music. There isn't a backbeat. There isn't anything here that really, that we could connect with. So what is it that you are playing?
Well, it's not, yes, it is different. It's not super duper alien. As you say, there's not a backbeat. For a lot of these dramatic pieces, it's like a flowing, continuous, shifting structure, something like you might hear in Bartók or Stravinsky.
Okay.
Other simpler pieces do have a recurring cycle of beats, but it might be 5/8 instead of 4/4.
Right.
So, and then in terms of the tunings, they did use microtones, which we know from documentation. I don't use those. I just am using tones and semitones, which gets you close to the world of modern scales. But the different notes you select and the different sequences of notes that they favored are a bit different from what we have.
And rather than having a fretboard like you would have on a guitar, you're pressing on the string just on the back end of it, and that's creating the sound.
Yes, except what you're pressing on is the strings you don't want to hear. So you're stopping the sound. So by fingering here, I'm letting this string and this string and this string sound.
Right.
And so.
Okay.
Right. So
opposite of the guitar.
It's the opposite.
Press down.
Right. So it's tuned in a scale. So it is like fingering a piano chord, except that you're not fingering the notes that you want to hear. You're fingering all the other notes that you don't want to hear. So that does take a bit of getting used to.
For a musician, you've got to just rearrange your head.
Right. And any musician that has tried a new instrument or plays several instruments will tell you, each one has its world of challenges, and you have to twist your head around. And so in the case of this, I'm not really thinking about the notes I'm playing so much as a mental picture of where my fingers go.
Okay.
And then if I change the tuning here, the same fingering will produce a different result.
Right.
So it really is a snapshot or a series of snapshots of finger positions.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's hear a selection from a performance that you put on last spring with your band, Call of Kanaru. John, as we listen to the music here, you're off there on the left. You're playing a different instrument. That's not a lyre. That's a kanaru.
No, that is this.
That is this lyre.
Here.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we got two lyres and someone with drums and a singer.
That's correct on this track.
And those aren't drums like someone would know today. It's got a name, right? So
yes, in modern times we just call this a frame drum.
Frame drum, thank you.
Ancient Greek was tympanon, it's the source of the word timpani. But yeah, it's just a big hand drum that you can see how he's playing it with the two hands, yeah.
And you can see, that's still something you would see today, that's not...
Yes, those are widely played in Central Asia, the Middle East, Egypt.
Okay.
Very commonly it's a women's tradition in the modern world. But,
okay.
Yeah.
And so the drummer, we should call him out, Jamie.
Yep, Jamie Levis, yep.
Jamie is your drummer. This seems to me something my daughters would say, a lot of vibes, not a lot of modern music, choruses, things like that. Is that accurate? Am I close?
Yes, so with the piece that you were just playing, this is known as an astrophic song, meaning it has no repetition. It just goes from A to Z, and it's continually changing. More of the songs in ancient drama, and this is from Euripides' Helen, which is an ancient tragedy. Most of the songs in tragedy and comedy are called strophic, meaning they do have a repetition. So you'll have an A section, and then you'll repeat that A section, and then you'll have a B section, and then you'll repeat the B section. So you do get to hear the material twice, each section twice, but it's not the same as a verse and then a real hooky refrain.
Yeah, verse, chorus, bridge, whatever.
Right.
That's going to be, so when you're playing these pieces, you're memorizing almost like you're giving a monologue. If you said it's from A to Z, you're memorizing each piece and where to put your fingers or remembering where to put your fingers.
Right. If you do it hundreds of times, though, it becomes second nature. And then when you're performing these to people that have never heard them, it's often easy to forget the impression that it's creating on them, having no frame of reference or never having heard it. And the words go by very quickly, and so the story is hard to grasp.
And they're also in Greek?
We can do them in Greek or in English. So the rhythms come from the Greek text, which has long and short syllables. And so when ancient composer made a song, they structured their words in such a way as to give the rhythm they wanted. We have translated all of these songs into English that fits that same rhythm. But because we preserved that original rhythm, we can plug the Greek back in, no problem. So for instance, when we perform in Italy, where we're big in Italy for some reason, they typically want to do it in Greek because it's part of a classics summer school.
Sure.
And so then we just plug the Greek words back in.
So it was that interchangeable. You could just take the English out and plug the Greek back in and it still stayed basically the same.
Right, that's really the only way you can claim to an audience that you're delivering them the original ancient rhythm, which you want to do.
You've also got a pick there. I guess it would be a pick. Now that looks like a little bit more than just a guitar pick, so it's got a handle.
Yeah, so this is made out of bone. It's called a plectron or a plectrum.
Okay,
and you strike the instrument with it, and it gives you a bit more volume.
Okay.
It also, even though these are nylon strings, I believe that the continual striking has decreased the resonance of the strings.
Right, right.
But it does cut more. You can do tremolos like that.
Right, right.
And I should point out that I'm playing a very basic strumming technique, but we know that, and that's really all I can do. But we know that they had many other techniques, two-handed sort of harp style.
Right.
There's a lot of
your other player sort of had developed that two-handed style.
That's right, and we try to do a Robert Fripp, Adrian Ballou, two dueling lyres, interlocking parts. But there's in harmonics and pull-offs and so on. If you go on YouTube and you search for Lyre virtuoso,
right.
you'll see
you can see someone
right.
really knows their lyre. Some real lyre players out there.
That's right.
Can you perform music from today on here? Can you give me some Chapel Roan? Can you give me some Taylor Swift?
You could do something like that. I'm trying to think. I don't think I have this set up for a tuning with one of the songs I do. But for instance, we do, Venus. We do a number of songs that have ancient themes, like Venus by Shocking Blue. Okay. Or Walk Like an Egyptian.
Right.
So you can do that. Yeah. So all you would do then in that case is set up your scale to be, an E
Western
scale,
E.
right, and then you finger it accordingly.
Yeah, for all guitar players out there, you're tuned to F, you said. Open F,
yes.
So that top string is an F?
The middle string is an F, so the middle string is the tonal center for all pieces, for most pieces. This is what we understand from the ancient sources, and so everything kind of relates to it. So that's F.
Gotcha.
F, C, and then B flat up there.
All right, gotcha. You also, we mentioned Jamie before. You also perform more modern music. You and Jamie have a band. Tell us about your band.
Right, so this is a band called the Full Cleveland. It plays yacht rock, which is an anachronistic term for music from the mid to 70s to mid 80s of a very professional, slick kind of, Steely Dan, Doobie Brothers, Hall & Oates, yep, and lots of sort of one-hit wonders. So we play around town. They've been around for a long time, and I'm a relatively new addition.
And you play keyboards.
Keyboards in that group.
No lyres in Hall & Oates that I know of.
No, I keep trying to bring it into the band, but those guys are not having any.
They're not having any.
They're not biting.
They're
real purists. They really want to,
They really want that 80s gated snare kind of sound.
Really more the mid to late 70s is the sweet spot.
Mid to late 70s.
Yeah.
Well, John, thank you very much. Thanks for bringing in your lyre.
Yeah.
That takes care of our program today. My thanks to everyone working behind the scenes here at WCAX who make this program possible. And as always, thank you for stopping by Across the Fence.